Hello, everyone. So it's now 5 o'clock. So we're going to wait a couple minutes to see if any more people are logging on to the meeting, and then we'll probably be starting the meeting at about 2 or 3 minutes after 5. Okay, I can see a few more people joining, so I'll just give it another minute or so.
Yes, you can see it up at the top. We're beside live. Use the number of persons watching. So right now we're at 6.
Okay, well, I don't see any more people that have joined, so I think I'll start the presentation. So welcome, everyone. This is the Drumbo Wastewater Treatment Plant Capacity Expansion, Schedule C Municipal Class Environmental Assessment Study, Public Information Center number 1. This is being presented by Oxford County and MTE Consultants, which is the consulting firm as part of this study. So as mentioned on this initial slide, the study is looking at increasing the wastewater treatment plant hydraulic capacity from its current rated capacity of 450 cubic meters a day to approximately 660 cubic meters a day. So I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items during the presentation. So this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on the project website, which is through Speak Up Oxford County. You will notice that your microphone and video are turned off. It does, we've tested it, so hopefully there's no technical difficulties. I imagine if there are any, that would be on your end. Please do use the Q&A button to put forward a question during the presentation to any of the presenters. I am a presenter, and there is also several people from Oxford County that are in attendance, and they would be also able to answer your questions at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. So you can see the image on the screen that shows where you can find the Q&A button, and you can type the question in there, and they will be read out and then answered at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. So in addition, after this presentation, if you think of another question to answer, or if you'd like to provide comments, you can provide that on the Speak Up Oxford website. You can send that to Andrew Stewart, who is the project engineer at Oxford County, or myself, Gemma Charlebois. I'm the project manager with MTE Consultants. We have a comment period of which we will be basically looking for your questions or your comments on the website and also through our emails, and that is a 2-week period following today. So, we would appreciate if you could get your comments and also questions in during that time frame. Again, if it's something you think of after presentation, but of course, feel free to type in any questions you have in the Q&A during the presentation. So to give you a bit of background on the Municipal Class EA Schedule C planning and design process, this is a process that each environmental assessment study needs to go through as part of the steps undertaken. And so you'll see there's 9 phases to a Schedule C study. And right now I'm going to, and this slide will show up a few times during the presentation. I'm going to, in the next slide, be going through phase 1, which is the identification of the problem or opportunity. You can see that phase 4 is the public consultation center number 1, which is where we are right now. So the opportunity statement, as mentioned at the beginning, the Drumbo Wastewater Treatment Plant has a current rated capacity of 450 cubic meters a day. And Oxford County is undertaking this Schedule C Municipal Class Environmental Assessment study to explore opportunities in order to increase that capacity above 600 cubic meters a day and determine what the most appropriate solution is to support growing wastewater servicing needs within the village of Drumbo and in the township. The map on the slide shows the location in the village of the wastewater treatment plant, and the red line indicates the discharge piping from the wastewater treatment plant to the outfall location, which is located at the Cohen drain. And so you can see my cursor right here. This is the location of the outfall. And then the Cohen drain itself discharges into the Nith River, which is about 4 kilometers downstream from where the wastewater treatment plant discharges into the Cohen drain. And again, the wastewater treatment plant is located here in the Village of Drumbo. So to give you a bit of background on the wastewater treatment plant itself, the last upgrades that were done at the treatment plant was the installation of a membrane bioreactor, also the acronym MBR system. And that was completed in June of 2024. So previous to that, the treatment plant had a conventional activated sludge process. So the difference between these two is different forms of how to treat wastewater. So in an MBR process, it separates treated effluent from the biomass, from the solids prior to disinfection and discharge. So with the replacement of the conventional activated sludge process by the membrane bioreactor system, we have equipment known as membranes that have replaced the clarifiers in this process. One of the benefits of the original installation completed in 2024 is that the system is expandable. So it was designed to accommodate a capacity expansion without needing additional buildings or tanks. So a membrane system in this particular case contains 2 identical treatment trains. So essentially, you would have the same process going through identical treatment processes, such that it's possible that if one is down for maintenance, you are still have an operational treatment plant. And each train contains 2 cassettes, and these cassettes are made up of membrane modules, hence the term membrane bioreactor. In this particular case, each cassette can accept up to 16 modules, and they are partially filled at the moment with 12 installed per cassette. So in total, the system has 48 modules installed and has a space for 16 additional ones, which is essentially what I just mentioned in terms of the last bullet point. So capacity, you can increase capacity by installing additional membrane modules into the existing membrane system. So we did say an increase in capacity up to or approximately 660 or above 600 cubic meters a day. This capacity has not been fully defined because that will depend upon what the ultimate cassette configuration that is selected, and the decisions for that will be made after, or I should say the alternatives for that will be explored after this presentation, and that will be something that will be highlighted in Public Consultation Center number 2. This slide here is to give you an idea of the effluent quality prior to the installation of the membrane bioreactor. So you can see on the left-hand side, it gives the the daily flow in cubic meters per day. And then it lists 5 key indicators of that of the effluent, total suspended solids, carbon, biological oxygen demand, total ammonia nitrogen in the summer months, and total ammonia nitrogen in the winter months. So you can see from this slide that prior to the installation of the membrane bioreactor, and after the installation, there has been a decrease in the loadings as measured in kilograms per day of these parameters, and that is a very good thing. So that's beneficial to have lower loadings of these parameters in the effluent discharge. And then on the very right here, you can see what the effluent loading limits are, and this is per the environmental compliance approvals, which is provided by the Ministry of the Environment. So this is the limits for the wastewater treatment plant. And as you can see from 2025 data, the plant is operating well under those limits, which is very good. So I've provided what the intent is from the county in terms of their reasoning for wishing to increase the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant to determine solutions for the growing servicing needs of the community. And I've also gone through some background on the wastewater treatment plant itself, both in terms of previous work that's been done there and to highlight the effluent quality from the wastewater treatment plant and where that currently stands. So following, as part of the environmental assessment study, in order to consider an increase in the capacity and what that would mean, the MTE with our subconsultants have engaged in a number of field investigations to show work in terms of what an increase in capacity may look like. So that is showing that as phase 2 on this slide. So this goes through some chronology that's been done to date. So initially, as with most environmental assessment studies, there's a meeting with the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Planning and Parks, which is the acronym MECP, to discuss the county's plan to increase the rated capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. And also in June of 2024, the ministry met with Hutchison Environmental, which is a subconsultant, an environmental subconsultant to MTE, to discuss the environmental requirements for the completion of this EA, of this study. And the ministry stated that the existing loading limits, the limits that were shown on that table on the right-hand side, would need, and assessing the impacts to the Cohen drain, which is where the effluent discharges to. So the impacts to the aquatic habitat would be required, and then the MECP would provide further confirmation on this. So that was a meeting held in June of 2024. So in July, the ministry further summarized their requirements, And they stated that the effluent loadings could remain within the same limits, the same current loadings. And I've listed the ECA approval number there. And it can be demonstrated that no species at risk in the Cohen drain would be impacted, then the ministry would support this upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant is also, or sorry, the discharge at the Cohen drain is on private property. So this also required permission from the property owner for acknowledging the effluent within essentially their private pond. In addition to that, the county provided the ministry with a letter of commitment that this upgrade would be essentially the last that would be done at the current discharge location. So in other words, if there was to be an increase beyond 660 cubic meters a day of the rated capacity of the plant, then there would need to be another location determined for the wastewater treatment plant. Okay, so then as a result of basically that feedback from the ministry or some direction from the ministry as to what they would like to see, the county did provide the requested commitment letter in the fall of 2024, and then the permission letter from the landowner in the winter of 2025. In September, the species at risk, which is shown as SAR, so species at risk investigation, and the report was complete. And that report and investigation showed that there was no adverse effects to any species at risk in the Cohen drain. And in October of last year, the MECP stated that they had reviewed that report, had no further comments, and that the county could then proceed with the EA process. So the next phase of the study is to develop alternative solutions. So various options as to how one would go about increasing the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. And the first step in doing that is to develop some evaluation criteria for those options. So how are we going to consider the benefit or cost of those of each of those options? And commonly, the evaluation criteria that I've listed here are common evaluation criteria in most environmental assessments. So things that are considered is community growth. So essentially the ability of the community to increase its population, which essentially means greater wastewater servicing needs. Effects on the natural environment. What are the effects on vegetation, water quality, species at risk, impacts to the receiver, any impacts of any spills or overflows that would occur as a result of a particular option being selected. The social environment and the health as well, influence to downstream drinking water sources, influence on community aesthetics for any construction that would be done or new infrastructure. Heritage and cultural impacts. So this is or basically if you're digging, if you're going to install new infrastructure, the archaeological resources or any heritage buildings that would be impacted. And then the operations of the county itself, its ability to operate the wastewater treatment plant with increased or with a particular option being selected. Then the feasibility of that option, so the ability to construct whatever needs to be constructed under that option, and any constraints as a result. And of course, cost as well as a consideration, the initial cost, and then the ongoing operating and maintenance costs. So you can also see that on the right-hand side, we provided a weighting factor to each of those criteria based on what we considered to be critical in this particular study. So this evaluation matrix takes a look at three alternatives, three options. And you'll notice that the first alternative is do nothing. And that's a requirement of the environmental assessment process. It's a requirement to evaluate that if you did nothing, how favorable is that option? And then the second alternative is to add more of the membrane bioreactor modules to the existing process, and in doing so achieves up to 660 cubic meters a day through having those additional treatment modules. And there's a note there as well to say that the county's 2024 Water Wastewater Master Plan considers a capacity of up to 625 cubic meters a day up to the year 2046 for this particular wastewater treatment plant. That would be the estimated needs of the community. And so it considers it up to the year of 2046. An alternative 3 would be a much larger expansion of the current wastewater treatment plant. So that would include a new outfall location, because again, there's a limit to the current outfall location to not be beyond 660 cubic meters a day. And so that capacity would be up to 1,200 cubic meters a day. And that number comes from a feasibility study that was conducted in 2022 in terms of what would it feasibly look like to have the necessity for a plant of up to 1,200 cubic meters a day. So through this evaluation, utilizing the criteria that I mentioned, and then ranking or weighing them in accordance with the weights of the criteria. You can see as the various, how the various numbers play out for each criteria. And then also at the bottom, a total score as a percentage out of 100. And based on that, the alternative number 2 was considered most favorable in terms of all of those criteria. Okay, so I'll just then go on to explaining a little bit about alternative number 2, the preferred alternative, and that is to add more membrane bioreactor modules to the existing process to achieve maximum discharge up to 660 cubic meters a day. So the picture on the left is a schematic. It's a essentially instrumentation control screen for the wastewater treatment plant. And then on the right-hand side, you can see what pictorially, what we're referring to when we say membrane cassettes. So these are a particular manufacturer, ZWeed 500D microfiltration membrane cassettes. And so you can see literally that they do look quite like a cassette. And then the addition of more of those to the current treatment trains would then provide that additional treatment capacity to enable there to be an increase in the rated capacity of the plant. So part of this particular slide explains a bit more some of the reasoning for how alternative number 2 was the preferred option, the preferred alternative. And in terms of community growth, it is limited to 660 cubic meters a day. But also per the 2024 Water Wastewater Master Plan, there really isn't a consideration for much in the way of servicing needs up to 2046 beyond that. So it fits very well within what the current servicing strategy and master plan is for the county. The natural environment, so the effluent loadings would be maintained within the current effluent limits. So there's not an increase to the loading limits. And as you can, if you recall from the table that was shown, the loadings to the Cohen drain were substantially improved following the conversion to the MBR system. And the species at risk investigation that was undertaken in 2025 showed that there was no impacts to species at risk. So that is beneficial to the natural environment. Socially, there would be minimal impacts to the local community. There isn't any anticipation that construction activities would impact any surrounding land use. They would be more contained within the existing wastewater treatment plant footprint. And there's also, as identified in the previous EA that was done when the wastewater treatment plant was converted to the membrane system, there are no heritage or cultural resources that are located near, on or near the location, near the wastewater treatment plant. It's also important to know that the county operations staff are very familiar with the membrane bioreactor process. So an increase in capacity utilizing that same technology is very familiar to them and would be relatively seamless in terms of its continued operation. And again, similarly, I think technical feasibility and county operations are very similar for this particular alternative. And costs would be, relatively speaking, lower because it's utilizing the existing infrastructure, it's utilizing the existing treatment trains to expand an already existing process. It also lowers the unit cost, so you're treating more cubic meters per day per the amount of money it costs to treat in terms of operating costs. And it's also worth noting that the majority of the capital costs were incurred when the process was upgraded following the previous EA. So when the membrane system was put in, the one that was completed in 2024. So those capital costs have already been substantially incurred. Okay, so where we are now is at the Public Consultation Center. So an opportunity for the county to present to you the work that has been done to date through the field investigations and consultations with the ministry, and also the development of the alternative solutions and what the county considers to be the preferred solution in this particular case. And following this PCC and the receipt of your comments, we will be looking to develop design options for that preferred alternative. So if you recall previously that I mentioned that the rated capacity was not set in stone because that would be dependent upon the exact technology chosen. So that would be part of the considerations under phase 6. And then in phase 7, we would be having another public consultation center in which we would be presenting the work done as part of that. Okay, so to give you a bit of a timeline of where we are, so today's February 3rd, and we are having the Public Consultation Center number 1, and the comment period goes until February 17th. And then through this winter is evaluating the design options for the preferred alternative. We're anticipating having another public consultation center to discuss that in the spring of 2026. And then from there, the preferred design option would be finalized or would be selected, I should say. And the requirement of the EA process is to submit an environmental study report, which is a comprehensive report that includes all of the information, findings, data, correspondences, your comments, and basically goes through the process of showing how we arrived at the decisions we did arrive at, and in taking into consideration all of the feedback we had received and the work that's been done. And once that is submitted, there's a 30-day comment period. And that's an opportunity then for further comments from the public and any agencies in regards to that report, in regards to the EA itself. And then there's a final posting with the ministry after that 30-day period. So with that, I'm just reiterating again that we do want to hear from you. And there are a number of ways that you can do that. So Andrew's email and phone number are listed here, as well as mine, Gemma Charlebois. And we will take your questions now, of course, but we would like your comments and or questions if you think of them after the presentation on or before the 17th. And also there's the QR code for Speak Up Oxford as well. So that is the end of my presentation. And so I think if we have some questions, then I can field, or well, Zen is going to read out the questions. And then I will either answer them or I will field them to the county to provide their responses.
Okay, so thank you, Gemma. We do have some questions here. The first one, what will be the impact of the water temperature on the wastewater?
The water temperature on the wastewater. I'm assuming by water temperature, they mean the water temperature of the Cohen drain. So the water within the pond itself. So normally the receiver, the natural water body, is a colder temperature than the wastewater effluent. So the effluent needs to, not be too hot, essentially. But there wouldn't be an impact of the pond's water temperature on the effluent. It would be more that the effluent would mix with the receiver's temperature, and essentially at the direct location of the discharge, you would have a mixing zone of which then the temperature would slowly be reduced the further away it gets from the discharge location until it becomes approximately that of the receiver. Did anyone from the county want to elaborate further on that answer? Or I think that if I understand the question correctly, I think that's what the person intended.
Okay. Another question, it says, what will the wastewater contribute? Or will the wastewater contribute to any murkiness of the water in the drain and in the nith? Will the wastewater contribute to any murkiness of the water in the drain and the nith?
I think that probably would be best answered by the county so that they could provide information on what the effluent looks like right now, because that is going to be most indicative of what it would look like with an increase in capacity. So Andrew, I don't know if you want to answer that question or if you want to have someone else answer it.
Yeah, thanks for passing that question along. I'm going to probably take a stab at this, but I may need to have some support by some of our other team members here. So we did perform an environmental impact assessment, which was done by Hutchison Environmental, which is a sub of MTE. They did assess the impacts on the Cohen drain, specifically primarily due to the species at risks that may be present as required by the MECP. And the results of the study concluded that there was no harmful impacts to the aquatic species in the Cowan drain, including the species that were identified as species at risks. And as stated previously, the environmental compliance limits were maintained from the previous EA expansion. I also did want to add a note here that the effluent discharge as part of the previous conversion was relocated to this private pond location, and it's a 4 kilometer, or it's the impact assessment was done on a 4 kilometer reach from where it discharges, which is also kind of relates back to the previous question regarding water temperatures. It has time to cool down on its traveled path to the discharge location via natural conveyance through the sewers. So it does have a chance to cool down. I hope that answered your question, but yeah, the short of it is the report indicated that there's no impacts to the Cohen drain in the Nith River. So I will leave it at that, but also happy if anyone else would like to join in and provide some additional clarification.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so the obviously the connection between that and murkiness is that if there was any substantial murkiness, that would be considered an impact to species within the Cohen drain. Okay, next question then.
Next question. I should let you know that these questions are presented by ARM President. And these are the questions he's been asking. How will the wastewater plant remove micro and nanoplastics in the sewage water? How will the wastewater plant remove micro and nanoplastics in the sewage water?
Again, I would let the county answer that from an operations standpoint, but I can also say that most wastewater treatment plants are not designed to remove nanoparticles. They do get removed as part of the treatment, but there isn't a specific design for them to be removed. Did anyone from the county want to add to that further?
Don Ford here. I could answer some of that.
Great. Thanks, Don.
Sure. So the membranes are allow very little through them. It produces a very high quality effluent. I believe if Jason were to look at some of his recent test results, it's non-detect even on solids, and just extremely excellent high quality effluent. So anything that's there, these nanoparticles, the ones that accumulate, are going to be taken out with the sludge, and when it's wasted, and when it's wasted, it's put into a vacuum truck and taken to the Woodstock Wastewater Treatment Plant for further processing through digesters, centrifuges, and various other techniques. So that process will continue on that way. And as we've already heard, there is no limit currently in any ECA in the county for those emerging items of concern like nanoplastics. They are being studied by the federal government. There's research into it. We've participated in studies and samples and things, but at this point there is no Ontario regulation and nothing in our ECAs. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, thank you, Don.
Okay, next question. Once biomass is removed from the modules or the treatment plant, where does it go? Once the biomass is removed from the modules or the treatment plant, where does it go?
I think Don actually answered that as part of his previous answer, which is that it goes to the Woodstock wastewater treatment plant for further processing by that particular treatment plant's digesters.
Maybe I
Okay,
can add
sorry.
sorry to interrupt. Maybe I can just add a little further details, and Jason or the other water team can correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe that ultimately the biomass is used for fertilizer in farmlands. I believe it's sold as a byproduct that's used to fertilize agricultural lands.
I'll just jump in there. Thanks, Andrew. It isn't actually sold. It's applied as a NASM, non-agricultural source material, but that's out of the Woodstock plant. So that it's a very, Drumbo's is a very small part of what was processed there. So that is taken out. It is grown, it's put on land for the beneficial reuse to grow agricultural crops. But we have to pay for that service through, we have a contract with a land applier, and we have that all permitted. So that's all very heavily regulated, tested, and stored at our centralized storage facility. But it isn't sold as a commercial fertilizer. It's applied under the NASM regulations. Hope that's
Great.
helpful.
Thanks, Don.
There are no further questions at the moment.
I think there's one, there's an about enhancements. Do you see that?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Okay. I'll give it a read then.
Yes.
There's a question that says, are there any enhancements required to the Cohen drain?
Oh, yes, just yeah.
There's not any enhancements required. There's isn't any plan for any design or redesign of the outfall location as part of this EA, and the preferred solution would not need to include any, I guess, enhancements or changes to the outfall itself. So I think what we'll do then is we'll give it a few more minutes to see if there's any further comments that or questions that come in. There might be a bit of a lag between when someone typed in a question and when we see it. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then if there are no further questions, then that will be the end of the presentation. But we'll let you know if there are no further questions. But if you do, please do type them in the Q&A.
Yes, Gemma, I think an email just popped up on my email asking if we can provide a protocol so they could watch the wastewater meeting afterwards. But I think that information is available on the website because the recording will be posted. So it will be available for others to view after. So we'll respond to that email after.
Okay, great. So ARM president said he or she is all out of questions. Well, thank you for your questions nonetheless.
Yeah.
Okay, is there, I'm not seeing another question, but if you wanted to field one, Andrew, please do go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Gemma. It was very well done, and hopefully we'll get some more questions that come in here. I just did want to thank everyone else also for their time and attending. I did see some people join in just recently, so I just did want to reiterate that we do have the presentation will be posted to our Speak Up Oxford page. And our question period is on until February 17th. So we're looking forward to receiving some questions. We have both our contact information for myself and Gemma posted on the screen here. And it's also provided on our Speak Up Oxford page where there's some additional information about the project, including previous information that's been presented to the public. So yeah, I just wanted to once again thank everyone for their time today, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions, or feel free to stick around and add any more questions to the Q&A feature here, and we'll have some allow some additional time, or we can also respond to those questions at a later date. But yeah, once again, thank you everyone for your time and participating in this Public Information Center.
Great. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Have you seen any, Zen, on your end?
No, not anymore right now. Not seeing anything else.
Okay, so I think we'll formally end the presentation then. And again, as Andrew mentioned, there's a comment period until the 17th. Then there's multiple ways that you can get in touch to provide further comments and further questions. So please do so if you think of any after the presentation. And thank you very much for your attendance and your interest in all of your questions.